A man of God does not chase women. He chases purpose, growth, and God. And that truth alone separates boys from men. When a man runs after attention, he trades his identity for validation. He confuses being noticed with being valued. And in doing so, he forces connections that were never meant to last. Chasing women doesn't build love. It builds anxiety, ego, and disappointment. Real attraction is never created by desperation. When you pursue God, everything changes. Your character deepens. Your discipline sharpens. Your spirit leads. And without begging, without games, the right woman begins to notice. Not your money, not your looks, but the strength of who you've become. She recognizes peace. She recognizes purpose. She recognizes God at work in you. A man on assignment doesn't run after approval. He walks in obedience. And when he does, what belongs to him doesn't need to be chased. It finds him. Stop chasing women. Start becoming the man God designed. Many people confuse attention with affection and validation with real love, and that confusion costs them peace. Just because someone responds when you chase them doesn't mean they value you. It often means they value how you make them feel. Attention can be addictive, but addiction is not love. If a woman only wants you when you are pursuing her, texting first, proving yourself, or constantly trying to impress, she is not drawn to who you are. She is drawn to the attention you provide. The moment you stop chasing, the interest fades, and that reveals the truth. What disappears when effort stops was never love to begin with. That kind of dynamic is fueled by ego, not connection. Ego feeds on being wanted, admired, and prioritized, but it never learns how to give. Love, on the other hand, does not need to be chased down or performed for. Love responds. Love shows up. Love chooses you even when you are not trying to earn it. When you settle for attention instead of affection, you stay trapped in one-sided effort and emotional exhaustion. Real love is mutual, steady, and secure. If you have to constantly chase someone to feel valued, you're not in love. You're in pursuit of approval. A godly woman does not require a man to chase her to prove his worth. She is not impressed by constant pursuit, empty words, or dramatic effort. Instead, she watches quietly. She pays attention to character, not charm. She looks for consistency, not intensity. And most importantly, she notices a man's walk with God, because she understands that where a man is led from will determine where he leads others. A woman of faith is drawn to stability, not chaos. She values a man who shows up the same way in private as he does in public. She sees how he handles pressure, how he treats people when there is nothing to gain, and how he submits his life to God's direction. That speaks louder than any pursuit ever could. She doesn't play games or measure love by how hard she is chased. She recognizes value without being convinced. And because of that, she is not rushed, desperate, or driven by attention. She is patient, discerning, and grounded. That kind of woman is rare. She is not found through chasing, but through becoming. And she is absolutely worth waiting for. Society has normalized a broken idea of love, one where women are taught to sit back and measure their worth by how hard a man chases them, even when that man is sincere and genuine. What we call the chase is often praised as romance, but in reality, it is frequently rooted in pride, not love. It creates a dynamic where one person performs while the other withholds, turning connection into competition. Love was never meant to be a power struggle. It is not a game of who waits longer, who texts last, or who pretends to care less. Those behaviors don't build intimacy, they build walls. When affection is used as leverage, sincerity is punished, and vulnerability is treated as weakness, true love does not require one person to exhaust themselves to earn attention. It requires mutual effort, mutual respect, and mutual willingness. Love thrives where two people choose each other freely, not where one chases while the other hides behind pride. Partnership means both hearts leaning in, both voices being heard, and both people serving one another. When love becomes a chase, pride is in control. But when love becomes a partnership, growth, peace, and trust finally have room to exist. Even God, who holds all power, does not force love. He invites. He reaches out, extends grace, and patiently waits for a response. That alone defines what real love looks like. Love that must be forced is not love at all. It is control. Love that is rushed, pressured, or demanded loses its meaning the moment freedom is removed. Real love has always required choice. It asks, but it does not beg. It offers, but it does not manipulate. God's example shows us that love honors free will, because only what is freely given can be genuine. Anything else may look like connection on the surface, but underneath it is fear or obligation. That same truth applies to human relationships. Love cannot survive on one-sided effort. When one person is always pursuing, explaining, proving, or holding the relationship together, imbalance replaces intimacy. Affection becomes transactional, and exhaustion replaces joy. Mutual participation is the foundation of lasting love. Both people must choose to show up, to communicate, to invest, and to grow. When love flows both ways, it brings peace instead of anxiety. If God Himself does not force love, neither should we. Love that is real will respond freely, or it was never love to begin with. Adam did not chase Eve. He wasn't searching, scrolling, or striving for companionship. He was working, fully engaged in the purpose God had given him. He had direction before desire, responsibility before relationship. And it was in that place of obedience and focus that God brought Eve to him. Before love entered the picture, Adam had purpose, boundaries, and a mission. He knew what he was called to tend, what he was responsible for, and who he was accountable to. His life had structure. His identity was rooted in God, not in the absence of another person. Relationship was added to his life, not used to complete it. What's powerful is that God did not respond to Adam's loneliness. He responded to Adam's readiness. Adam wasn't asking for a woman. He was walking with God. And God, seeing that Adam was prepared to lead, to steward, and to love rightly, brought relationship at the right time. That pattern still matters. Love flows best when purpose comes first. When a man is grounded in his calling, relationship becomes a gift, not a distraction or a crutch. Many men desire a woman before they ever develop discipline, self-control, or obedience, and that imbalance shows in the relationships they build. Instead of leading with character and stability, they lead with emotion, chasing feelings, validation, and connection without the inner strength required to sustain it. Emotion may spark attraction, but it cannot support a relationship on its own. When discipline is missing, inconsistency takes over. When self-control is lacking, boundaries are ignored. When obedience to God is absent, personal desire becomes the loudest voice. Relationships formed in that state may feel intense at first, but intensity is not the same as depth. Without a solid foundation, passion quickly turns into frustration, and closeness becomes confusion. Building a relationship on emotion is like building a house on sand. It may look good for a moment, but pressure reveals its weakness. Conflict, temptation, and responsibility expose what was never rooted in maturity to begin with. That is why so many men walk away from relationships feeling hurt, bitter, or empty, not because love failed, but because the foundation was never there. Before pursuing a woman, a man must first learn to lead himself. Discipline creates stability. Self-control builds trust. Obedience aligns purpose. Without these, love becomes another place of loss instead of growth. You cannot lead a woman if you cannot first lead yourself. Leadership is not about control or confidence alone. It begins with discipline, accountability, and self-mastery. A man who lacks direction within himself will eventually bring confusion into any relationship he enters. Without inner leadership, there is no stability to offer someone else. When a man's relationship with God is broken or neglected, that fracture often shows up in his relationships with people. Without spiritual grounding, decisions are driven by emotion, insecurity, or desire for approval. What should be built on trust and purpose instead becomes reactive and fragile. A disordered spiritual life almost always produces disordered connections. Chasing women for validation is a clear sign of misplaced identity. When a man looks to a woman to confirm his worth, he reveals that he has not yet rooted his value in God. Validation becomes a substitute for identity, and attention becomes a temporary fix for deeper insecurity. But no amount of affection can heal a void that only God was meant to fill. True leadership flows from knowing who you are and whose you are. When identity is secure in God, relationships become healthier, calmer, and more balanced. Until then, chasing validation will only lead to deeper emptiness, not love. God does not allow relationships to fail because He hates you or wants to punish you. He allows them to end because He is protecting you from counterfeit love, connections that look right on the surface but lack the depth, timing, or foundation needed to last. What feels like loss is often mercy in disguise. Sometimes the relationship wasn't wrong, the timing was. Sometimes the person wasn't bad, the preparation was missing. When a man is not ready, even a good woman can be harmed by his immaturity, insecurity, or lack of direction. Good intentions cannot replace readiness. Love without stability eventually turns into pain. God sees what we cannot. He knows when a relationship would pull you away from growth instead of pushing you toward it. Allowing it to continue would cost you more than ending it ever could. So He removes it, not to break you, but to preserve you. Every failed relationship carries a lesson, not a label. It reveals areas where healing, discipline, or identity must be strengthened. Protection doesn't always feel gentle, but it is purposeful. When God closes a door, it is often because what's behind it would have damaged you, delayed you, or destroyed the love you were meant to experience at the right time. Attraction is not built through desperation, smooth talk, or constant texting. Those things may get attention for a moment, but they rarely earn respect. Trying too hard often reveals insecurity, not confidence. Real strength doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly and consistently. What truly draws people in is discipline, calmness, and inner strength. A disciplined man moves with intention. He knows when to speak and when to stay silent. He doesn't rush decisions or chase approval because his life is ordered and his values are clear. Calmness signals control, and control creates trust. Inner strength is not loud or flashy. It's revealed in how a man handles pressure, rejection, and responsibility. It shows in restraint, patience, and the ability to remain steady when emotions run high. That kind of presence makes others feel safe without a single word being spoken. A disciplined man does not need to explain his worth or prove himself endlessly. His actions speak for him. People respect what is consistent, grounded, and secure. When a man leads himself well, respect follows naturally. Not because he demanded it, but because his character made it undeniable. There is a clear difference between pursuit and chasing, and understanding it changes everything. Pursuit is intentional. It comes from a place of clarity, peace, and confidence in who you are. When you pursue, you move with purpose, not pressure. You express interest without losing yourself. Your identity remains intact because it was never dependent on someone else's response. Chasing, on the other hand, is fueled by fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of missing out. It is reactive, anxious, and exhausting. When a man is chasing, he overextends, overexplains, and overinvests, hoping effort will compensate for insecurity. But desperation never creates attraction. It only exposes emptiness. The right woman does not need to be convinced of your value. She will recognize it. She won't require constant proof, endless reassurance, or emotional performance. Interest that must be forced is not interest, it's tolerance. When you know who you are, pursuit becomes calm and respectful. You can walk away without bitterness if the interest isn't mutual. That confidence is powerful. Love that is meant for you will not make you beg, chase, or shrink yourself. It will meet you where you stand, not test how far you'll run. Many women say they want a confident man who loves God, leads with strength, and brings stability into their lives. Yet when that man shows up calm, consistent, and emotionally grounded, he is often overlooked because he doesn't bring drama. What is familiar feels exciting, even when it is unhealthy. Chaos can feel passionate, while peace is mistaken for boredom. When love has been confused with emotional highs and lows, stability feels foreign. A steady presence doesn't trigger anxiety or adrenaline, so it's easy to dismiss it as lacking chemistry. But real love is not built on constant tension. It doesn't thrive on unpredictability or emotional roller coasters. It grows in safety, trust, and consistency. Drama creates intensity, but intensity is not intimacy. Emotional excitement fades quickly, leaving exhaustion behind. Peace, on the other hand, creates space for growth, healing, and partnership. A godly man will not manufacture chaos to keep someone interested. He leads with clarity, not confusion. If peace feels boring, the issue may not be the man, it may be the heart's conditioning. Healing changes what we're attracted to. When emotional health grows, peace no longer feels dull. It feels like home. A godly man does not entertain insecurity or feed emotional instability just to keep someone close. He understands that love is not about constantly soothing fear or validating doubt. It is about growth. Instead of enabling weakness, he challenges it, because real love wants the best outcome, not the easiest one. He leads with intention and humility. He prays not only for himself, but for the woman beside him, covering the relationship with wisdom and discernment. When correction is needed, he speaks truth, not to wound, but to protect. His words are firm, yet grounded in care. He is not afraid to address what is unhealthy, because avoidance only allows damage to grow. This kind of leadership is often misunderstood. Correction is mistaken for control, and boundaries are labeled as restriction. But a godly man does not lead to dominate. He leads to serve. His strength is not used to overpower, but to guide, support, and shield. He protects the relationship by setting standards, honoring God, and refusing to compromise what matters most. That is what real leadership looks like: steady, prayerful, accountable, and rooted in love that is willing to grow, even when growth is uncomfortable. Love was never meant to look like one person chasing while the other hides. That dynamic creates imbalance, insecurity, and exhaustion. When one heart is always reaching and the other is always retreating, love turns into pursuit instead of partnership. Real connection cannot grow where effort is uneven. True love is found when two people are pursuing God and meeting on the same path. Each person comes whole, grounded, and intentional. No one is dragging the other forward or running ahead alone. Both are moving in the same direction, guided by the same values and the same purpose. Love is not 50-50, where each person gives just enough to stay involved. It is 100 over 100, both fully present, fully committed, and fully responsible for how they show up. Each person gives their best, not half of themselves, not what's left over. When love is mutual, it brings peace instead of confusion. There is no need for games, testing, or chasing. Effort flows naturally because both hearts want to be there. That is the kind of love that lasts, one built on shared faith, shared direction, and a shared willingness to give everything, not just enough. If you are not fulfilled in Christ, no relationship will ever complete you. A partner can complement your life, but they were never meant to fill a void that only God can heal. When identity and worth are placed in another person, love becomes a burden instead of a blessing. What should bring joy begins to carry pressure, expectation, and disappointment. Peace must be learned alone before it can be shared. If you cannot sit with yourself in stillness, insecurity will follow you into every relationship. Loneliness, when unresolved, turns love into dependency. Instead of choosing someone freely, you begin to cling to them for emotional survival. True peace is rooted in knowing who you are in Christ. It comes from wholeness, not from being needed or desired. When that peace is established, relationships change. You no longer seek someone to save you. You walk alongside them as an equal. Love becomes a partnership, not a rescue mission. Two peaceful people create a peaceful relationship. But when one or both are searching for fulfillment, love becomes unstable. Healing must come first. When you are complete in Christ, you are finally free to love without fear, desperation, or expectation. Peace within always comes before peace together. Stop chasing people. Chasing others for attention, validation, or love only pulls you further away from who you were created to be. When your focus is on winning someone over, you slowly lose yourself in the process. God never designed love to be pursued through pressure or performance. Start chasing God. When your life is aligned with Him, Obedience becomes your direction, and peace becomes your pace. You no longer run after what you think you need, because you trust God with what He knows you need. And in that trust, things begin to fall into place naturally. When you walk in obedience, what truly belongs to you does not require pursuit. It finds you at the right time, in the right way. There is no forcing, no striving, no confusion. God brings alignment without chaos. Real love carries no games, no begging, and no emotional manipulation. It doesn't keep you guessing or anxious about where you stand. Real love is recognized, not chased. It brings peace instead of tension and partnership instead of power struggles. When two people are aligned with God, love flows with clarity and purpose. That is the kind of love worth waiting for, and it only comes when God comes first.